Welcome to this week's weekly draft breakdown. We do 10 in-depth breakdowns of NFL draft prospects throughout the entire week, and I love doing those. I spend so much time on them. They're a lot of fun to make. I think they're a bit, I don't want to say too informative. I really like them because they're a bit more objective, and I'm naturally my opinions in them, but I try to stay away from getting like real opinionated. That's what this last show's for. We can kind of not worry about being too informative and try to focus on being a lot more opinionated. We're going to have a lot more fun on this show. I think that those other videos are kind of like the homework. This is kind of having fun with all that work that we put in throughout the entire week. So I'm going to get a lot more opinionated now on these players than I did on those other videos. I'm also going to factor in your guys' opinions. You guys do a great job commenting, and it's a lot of fun to factor in what other people think about football players. And that's really how a community starts to grow, I think. And you guys have been doing such a great job commenting. You guys know a lot about football, a lot more than me. Some of you not so much. I think sometimes it's not that you don't know about football, and I'm just saying this is for some of the comments that I get. I think a lot of people just kind of allow their emotions to get ahead of them and really have emotional responses. But I think that's why football is so fun, is because of how emotional some people get about it. So we'll get into all that right now. We're going to talk about the 10 players that we did throughout the week. I don't think we actually got the 10 this week. We do have some housekeeping stuff, some exciting channel news. We also have a nice little curveball or a pivot. I think I got scammed on eBay because I bought a hobby box when I was like 18 for baseball, because I used to be into baseball cards and stuff, and I remember them being a lot bigger than this, and I'm not going to tell you how much I spent on this on eBay, and I feel like my local Dick's Sporting Goods has like a much bigger box than this for the same price that I paid, but whatever it is, we do have 20 packs in this. So we're going to do one of these a week, and there's 2 autographs in this. So actually, we'll do 2 packs a week if we have 20 packs, because that'll get us up to the draft, and hopefully we get an autograph today. But yeah, this is a Topps Bowman U. Not sponsored by them. Don't give them any money that you weren't going to begin with. But we'll do that later. Some exciting brand news, like I said, and then we'll also talk about Trinidad Chambliss, the really big news about him not being in this 2026 class, it looks like, because it was kind of seemed like it was on the fence, but I didn't think he was ever going to really be in this class, just because it kind of seemed like they knew some. I'll talk about that later, but we'll get into Jeremiyah Love and Mansoor Delane, the 2 first-round picks that we're talking about today, and we'll get started with Jeremiyah Love, just doing a real quick background. I don't really have to do it for these first-rounders, but 1,100 yards in 2024, elevated himself to the national scene. Everybody's talking about Jeremiyah Love in this 2026 class. A guy that was kind of expected to be a first-round running back, and, that's a pretty special thing, being that it's not just because you're a great college running back. I think for the other positions, for the most part, if you're great, in college, you're usually a first-round pick, and of course, there's guys that have skill sets that translate to the NFL and other guys that don't, but I think especially for running back, the success that you have in college doesn't always translate into love from the NFL. Jeremiyah Love's a guy that, was loved by college football fans, and I do think he was kind of loved by NFL scouts for a while after that 24 season, and then he really solidified himself in 2025, where he finished with 1,300 rushing yards, almost 1,400, 1,372. He finished with 18 rushing touchdowns. So we'll talk about Jeremiyah Love right now, and yeah, we did the more in-depth breakdown. I just really talked about the speed, but he's also a pretty powerful running back, and we talk about speed to power all the time as edge rushers. That's kind of what Jeremiyah Love is he can just kind of pull that trigger so fast and accelerate that he's a very powerful football player when he kind of gets into the second level because of the speed that he's moving at. It's like a bullet, right? I mean, a bullet just standing there is not really going to do any damage. How fast it goes is why you see it just kind of tear through flesh and bone and all that. But Jeremiyah Love, I want to say he was pretty... I'm trying to think any negative comments I've seen about him, and they're not really about Jeremiyah Love's game. It's just been about, Notre Dame plays an ACC schedule. I hate hearing about level of competition, and when we talk about Cole Payton, that's a legit conversation to have because that dude played in the FCS. But I mean, Notre Dame, okay, he didn't have a great game against Miami. Jeremiyah Love didn't. I also don't think that he was really utilized at all in that game. I forget how many touches he finished with, but the entire first quarter, I don't even know if Jeremiyah Love touched the football. But yeah, talking about level of competition when the dude played an ACC schedule, I just drives me out of my. It just drives me crazy because it's like people get upset if a college football team doesn't play like the other top 10. Like if they have a 12-team schedule, they want Notre Dame to play the teams ranked, 1 through 11 or 1 through 12. It's kind of ridiculous to kind of hold, oh yeah, this is awesome, but I see it's against Syracuse right now, who sucked in 2025. Like, I don't know what you want Jeremiyah Love to do in that situation. So I kind of hate when people bring that kind of stuff up. And if you have a legitimate gripe about Jeremiyah Love not being as good as he is, feel free to bring that up. But when I hear level of competition, when a guy played an ACC schedule, like, I'm not saying it like it's, the best competition in the world, but I don't think that's a legitimate knock to have against him, a legitimate knock. Unless he was like Cole Payton, we're going to talk about that. But the point I'm trying to make, Jeremiyah Love, yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he's utilized in the NFL. And I've seen people kind of like, there's a YouTube channel out there that does a great job, by the way. I'm trying to make this a positive, but they're called 2 Minute Drill, and they do a lot of like 2.5-minute videos. I love the idea of that. I honestly wish I came up with that first, because I would do that after the 8-minute videos, kind of do a more in-depth breakdown and then just do a really fast 2-minute video where you just kind of give everything like real quick. I love that idea. I wish I came up with it. Not smart enough to come up with that first, and I can't do it now because they do it. But on their video about Jeremiyah Love, they kind of talked about him not having that like phone booth athleticism where he's just like real agile, and they said something about him not being able to really string cuts together. I think that's what they said, something like that, or they didn't really like his like explosiveness. I don't know what they're talking about, because you watch the way that defenders react to Jeremiyah Love's speed. I definitely think that first he has an advantage at the beginning because of that explosiveness. I really do think he's a twitched up running back. I don't know where they get that stuff from, and I'm just saying that based on the way that the defenders react to Jeremiyah Love. Point I'm trying to make is I just don't think that his real strength is him going left and right. I think he can do that. I think that his time is a lot more valuable spent getting downhill, because he really turns into a powerful running back when he gets to those linebackers. I think we talk about speed to power all the time as edge rushers. He's a very powerful running back because of that speed he generates and how fast he generates it. That you can just see that also, the way that the defenders react in space to him, but also when they're trying to tackle him, he does a real good job of just kind of running through contact, because he does have a powerful lower body, and he's just moving so fast that he has so much momentum that he can just kind of finish those runs after that initial contact. So I think Jeremiyah Love brings a whole lot as a physical running back. I think that kind of gets downplayed, and I understand it because everybody's so excited about the athletic stuff. Me too. That's the first thing that really jumps out when you watch Jeremiyah Love. But when you start like really paying attention to him, you get kind of blown away by how strong he is also. I think we try to like calm ourselves down with a lot of football players, at least I do. And when you see a guy like that is so fast, you kind of just expect to see the negative be, oh, he's not that strong. Jeremiyah Love really does check the boxes in that. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't know if this is a guy that you feel like you have to draft in the first round if you're running a bit more of a zone scheme where you're asking a running back to be real patient at the line of scrimmage and then really lean into that agility. I like this guy a lot more in a bit more of a power scheme where you're just asking these running backs to get downhill and, really generate that speed at the get-go and just kind of explode. I don't think you want him to lean into that patience or really be a patient running back, because that's valuable time that he could have spent just, shooting out of a cannon. And of course, I know that it's not, in 2025, 2026, it is now every NFL offense runs power and runs scheme and runs zone, that is. I just think that really kind of like using him just out of the backfield, exploding downhill and making those cuts at the second level. I think he does a good job of that. So, but I'm really interested to see the way that NFL teams think about Jeremiyah Love as a weapon and not as a running back, or not just as a running back, because to me, Jeremiyah Love is a bit more of a running back than a weapon. And the reason, like what I mean by that, I know that kind of sounds like semantics or whatever. Well, when Jahmyr Gibbs was drafted, to me, that was a dude that wasn't a running back. That guy was a bit more of a positionless football player. And the reason that I bring up Jahmyr Gibbs right now is because he's not getting compared to Jeremiyah Love for good reason. They're very different football players, but I think they're similar levels of athletes. Now, that's a very high standard. Jahmyr Gibbs has had all that real testable stuff, and maybe we have to wait till Jeremiyah Love actually tests out at the combine, and then we can have that. But I think at least on the film, they're in the same tier. I'm not saying that they're the same athlete, but the same level, the same tier of athlete. I don't think Jeremiyah Love is really an offensive weapon in that sense, where you're going to get real creative in the way that you use him and split him out wide and use him in all different kinds of situations. I think Jeremiyah Love to me is a lot more of just a workhorse running back that you just kind of say, here's the football, just be a great athlete, be a great running back. With Jahmyr Gibbs, I feel like he was a guy that, you kind of get more excited about the way that you can use him in the scheme. I think that Jeremiyah Love is a lot more of a running. I don't know if that makes any sense, if I'm going completely crazy. All that to say is I'm real interested to see the way that Jeremiyah Love is used in the NFL, because, he did have 600 receiving yards almost in his college football career over two, real seasons of production, 237 and 24, 280 receiving yards in 2025. And, of course, in Notre Dame's offense, they're a lot more of a running offense, especially in 2025 with a freshman quarterback. So I'm very curious to hear other people's opinions on that, on how they think Jeremiyah Love will get kind of used outside of just him being a running back, because I don't know that you kind of get creative with him. To me, it's just a guy you just hand the football off to. So is this guy worth a first-round pick? Yeah, I definitely do. I know that I haven't really talked about how great of an athlete he is right now, because I did that all Monday or all Tuesday whenever we did the video. But yeah, that speed is really game-breaking. And this is what I was saying before about some of the angles that the defenders took in the open field. Well, you can't even really blame them. And Bishop Fitzgerald, for one example, there's one where Jeremiyah Love just starts to float to the outside, and Bishop Fitzgerald just has no chance to even get a hand on him. And what it really is, though, against Syracuse, he just kind of bursts into the open field. And it isn't so much that Jeremiyah Love, if you would line him up with the Syracuse defenders, that he would beat him in a foot race. I'm sure he would, but the reason that those go for so many yards when the defenders have a lot of angle to kind of make up that ground is he's just impossible to get an angle on in the open field. So I think he's a guy, this is really the final evaluation. And I kind of made this metaphor earlier in the week that Jeremiyah Love is just a prize fighter. I think there's some running backs that their game's kind of based on them, just landing a lot of light punches in the early rounds, and then that kind of opens up a bigger punch later. I think Jeremiyah Love, every time he touches the football, has the chance or has an opportunity to just knock your ass out because of that game-breaking speed. And he will land those lefts. Those jabs are a big part of his game, where he'll just go 10 yards. He'll just explode real quick to the outside, 10-yard gain. But at the same time, if he has an angle in the open field, if you just kind of open your chin to him just a little bit, he can just really quick just throw that right and just knock your ass out in the first round. So I really think Jeremiyah Love's a prize fighter. That's why he's worth a first-round pick. I know it's easy for me to say, yeah, he's such a good running back. Well, we're going to talk about a lot of other good running backs in this class. I like a lot of other names that we're going to be talking about, but we won't be talking about them as first-rounders. I think that game-breaking speed, it's easy to just say he's fast, but in a football context, he really can rip off those big runs, and that's very valuable to an offense. But yeah, no real issues with Jeremiyah Love other than the fact that he's a running back. I think he's more of a running back than Jahmyr Gibbs, and that might sound like a positive thing to say, but Jahmyr Gibbs, you could get a lot more creative in the way that you use him in the open field. I know a lot of people gave the Lions shit for when they drafted him back then, but I think if you actually looked at the player they were getting, they were also getting a guy that could be a pretty damn good slot receiver because of that agility and that receiving ability. So I think with Jeremiyah Love, it's a lot more of a running back, so you might kind of get boxed into thinking, I don't know. I'm curious to hear other people's opinions on that, because I don't know if that point kind of makes any sense, but I don't see Jeremiyah Love as that kind of versatile football player that Jahmyr Gibbs was. And I don't know why I keep bringing up Jahmyr Gibbs, completely different football player, but just one of those first round running backs that my mind kind of goes to automatically. To me, it's the game breaking speed that Jeremiyah Love has. So, and that very strong football player when he gets into the second level. I think he just kind of checks the boxes And then when we're talking about the explosiveness and the speed, it's not a check in the box. It's like 3 or 4 of them because it's really exciting stuff. But those are my thoughts on Jeremiyah Love. I'll try to finish every player that I talk about today, whether I'm higher or lower on them than like the consensus. I'd say I'm about the same. I think he's going to be a good NFL player, but really quick, I just wanted to make one more point about the level of competition that Notre Dame played in 2025 because I did get a funny comment about it. This random guy goes, as a running back, I'd love to play Illinois and UCLA. He was a very good back, but he wouldn't be anything impressive if it wasn't for Big Ten or if he played in the Big Ten or full SEC schedule. Like, first of all, I don't know when this guy goes as a running back if this dude like played in the 90s and he was like all conference or all region in his high school, so he thinks he can talk about Jeremiyah Love. And unless this dude's an NFL player under disguise and that has a burner on YouTube, I don't know what this dude's talking about. But at the same time, like, to fault a running back because he didn't play the top 10 teams in the country, like, that's literally what some of these people want. I understand that there's a perception that the ACC is like way worse than the Big Ten or the SEC, but I think they're a lot closer than people kind of give it credit for. And I've seen a lot of people bring up the Miami game also, and I don't know. I think that was just kind of a weird way that he's being used in that game, not trying to just take that off the record, but it was one game. I think that the sample size shows a guy that's very dominant, and this is like the dude played ACC football, and you want to talk about level of competition just because he didn't play literally the top 10 teams in the country. I think that's kind of ridiculous. We'll move on to Mansoor Delane, a guy that did play a very difficult schedule. I think regardless of how you want to talk about it, did play some of the best teams in the country. But yeah, so I'm such a big fan of Mansoor Delane. I first watched him because on this YouTube channel, we used to kind of be a lot more freshman focused, a lot more recruiting focused. We still focus on those guys. We're just kind of expanding our focus a little bit. So I guess we're not really focused anymore. But I was watching DJ Pickett, the true freshman, in 2025, and he had a great game against Clemson, number 5, and then you just really couldn't watch that game without noticing how good I think DJ Pickett's number 3. You couldn't watch that game without noticing how good the cornerback on the other side was, and then you actually watched that Clemson game again, and Mansoor Delane played absolutely locked down. That was the case all season. I think one of my favorite players in this class. I've seen some people say they like Jermod McCoy better than Mansoor Delane, and I think that the consensus is that they think Jermod McCoy would be a better prospect right now if it wasn't for the ACL thing. And I like McCoy a lot. I think regardless, Mansoor Delane's kind of the corner in this class to me. And on Reddit, I saw somebody bring up a really interesting story about Derek Stingley and Sauce Gardner in that draft class. I forget exactly what year that was. Must have been 2022, 2023, whatever it was. The comparison was Jermod McCoy and Derek Stingley, similar players, guys that, really had great tape from the get-go, just kind of got banged up that last year. I remember how Derek Stingley was from the beginning, and Jermod McCoy's 2024, his sophomore season, was lights out, just kind of got hurt, and then Sauce Gardner had a great season his last year at Cincinnati. And that's what Mansoor Delane just did his one season at LSU. He was at Virginia Tech before that. So, yeah, this guy's definitely worth a top 10 pick. I mean, everything happens so easy. The athletic stuff happens easy. I do think the 40 time is going to be important for Mansoor Delane. I don't think I brought that up in the other video. Definitely feel good about the explosiveness. It's just almost like I think that he was so good in press coverage and man coverage when, he was just kind of bumping and running because that bump happened, so he didn't really have to run. I think in the NFL, when he can't really be as physical, or I'll say this, when the receivers are a lot more physical and that bumping won't just kind of knock him off the routes the way that it did in college football and he has to start running. I just think that a good 40 time will really make us feel a lot better about that second part. We feel great about the first part, and I mean, when I say I feel great, I still think he's going to be very successful in bumping in the NFL. I think he times his punches so well. One of the most patient cornerbacks, and I'm really amazed by the way that he can just be so patient while still being aggressive. And I've said this about a lot of football players because to me it's something that shows up in a lot of different positions. I think we talked about it with Demetrius Crownover And a lot of the offensive linemen that we talk about, it happens with edge rushers as well. It's just not, I know that's the way I put it into words, but it's really about timing. And of course, that's something that shows up in football, regardless of the position that you're playing. It's really the timing that Mansoor Delane has in his head is at such a high level. The athleticism's there's too. We're not worried about the change of direction. Definitely not worried about the explosiveness. Definitely not worried about the intelligence or the IQ or anything like that, because I think he does a real good job of recognizing route patterns. While I don't think he's the same zone cornerback as Jermod McCoy, I think that's why you might see an NFL team kind of prefer Jermod McCoy, assuming they're both healthy. I don't think that Jermod McCoy's as good in man coverage as Mansoor Delane is either. So I think that's kind of the trade-off. So yeah, Delane though, yeah, great. He's real good in zone. He's more of a man-to-man corner in my opinion, and he's a pretty damn good man-to-man corner as well. The hands come in at the right time. You shouldn't throw to Mansoor Delane as a general principle if you do decide to do that because you think there's a window there, and that window gets completely closed because Mansoor Delane can just kind of rake his hands in. Another thing is he does have a bit of a slight frame. I don't have the actual number up, but just remembering the film, how he looked, could stand to add another 10 pounds. So we'll see how that works out. But I mean, I'll be damned if he's not one of the best players that I've watched in this 26 class. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Mansoor Delane. I'd be ecstatic if my team picked him in the first round. Maybe we could go back to that Jermod McCoy debate. And like I said, I understand why you might like Jermod McCoy a bit better, but then you consider the injury thing as well. I would be pretty surprised. Well, it also depends on the scheme also. That's something else that's important. If you're playing a lot more man, I'd go with Mansoor Delane. If you're playing a lot more zone, I think I'd go with Jermod McCoy, assuming he was healthy. I think him being a bit banged up complicates things a little bit, or maybe makes it a bit easier to kind of prefer Mansoor Delane. But, you know, yeah, they both can do both at a high level. Me personally, I kind of lean to Mansoor Delane. That injury notwithstanding, to be honest. I just think the technical stuff and the man coverage that Mansoor Delane does is great. I think Mansoor Delane is better at man, or is better at zone than Jermod McCoy is at man. Does that make sense? So I think that Mansoor Delane's definitely better in man. I think Jermod McCoy's definitely better in zone. But I think that the weakness is a bit less for Mansoor Delane. That's just my 2 cents. Not to say that either are weak in either regard. Yeah, so just looking at my D-back rankings right now, if you guys are curious on the system that I have going here, that thing you see on the back wall right there, that is the calendar. Right, I can't really point to it right now, but the black tape on the wall outside of like this room right here, that's my schedule from the national championships at the top left, the drafts in the bottom right. So that's just a week-by-week basis, and then you can't really tell with the dark right now, but there's other sticky notes on the other side of not all draft players. I'd say guys that are going to go day 1 or day 2, and I put them on that calendar. You know, usually I don't plan more than 2 weeks ahead, but like for the combine, I already have Taylon Green there, guys. I kind of want to do relevant guys to the combine that week, and just all other kind of calendar stuff. So like the combine is up there, the Senior Bowl was up there. So the sticky notes start on that wall there with the black. They move to this whiteboard right here where I can plan out the week. I'm already starting to throw next week together. I don't get to everybody that ends up on the calendar, so those are the guys that are on the wall above it, like right there, and then at the top right there. So some guys I've watched, I've been watching The Wire, been rewatching that. So I try to get a lot of film done, and I'll put that on and just kind of make the cut-ups at the same time. So I'm not treating when I'm watching the TV show and the film as that's not my evaluation, you know. I'm just kind of picking out the big plays and then putting it all together. Then I'll come back and watch it a week later, and hopefully it turns into a video. So that's where they go. And if you could see the wall right there, after I watch them and have an actual evaluation and a video up, they get put on a wall right here where I kind of do my player rankings, my position rankings. So that's the point I'm trying to make. So yeah, right now I have Mansoor Delane as the best defensive back. After him, I have Jermod McCoy. I actually have Keontae Scott as the third best one, but that's, you know, there's other guys that are on that wall that I've watched that I know are better than Keontae Scott. They just haven't been through like the system yet, so they're not up yet. And then D'Angelo Ponz, and then Emmanuel McNeil Warren, and I might swap those two. But yeah, anyways, Mansoor Delane's the best corner in this 26 class, in my opinion. And I think he's a guy that is going to be in the conversation of one of the best defenders in this class. I think he's that good of a player. I got some hate on my YouTube. That's kind of like the nice little sweet line that I had in the short. I don't think it's true. I think he's in the conversation, though. I do think he's that caliber of a player because the man coverage is so good. He gives you a lot in zone anyway. I think we can move on from Mansoor Delane. I wanted to also work in, dude, I wish, if you think some of the stuff I say in the videos are stupid, I wish you guys could like hear everything that I come up with, because a lot of the stuff is a lot more dumb. Like I had this whole pun that I wanted to work in. You know, I was going to do it in the descriptions. I don't think I was going to say anything, but when we were talking about the man coverage for Mansoor Delane, I was just going to put Mansoor, and then for the zone coverage, I was going to put zone Soar. But it was too stupid and corny, so I didn't do that. But yeah, I definitely think he's a high caliber player. Of course, Caleb Downs, haven't really like done a breakdown on this channel yet, but watching Ohio State games and, you know, just being aware of who he is, don't think they're the same player. Of course, two different positions. I know we kind of group defensive backs in, but yeah, Caleb Downs. Anyways, we're not talking about Caleb Downs this week. We'll do Cole Payton now, the quarterback at North Dakota State. So this is a really interesting evaluation because I think a lot of times when we watch guys that like played a lower level of competition, it was like they did it for years and then they're just finally moving on to the NFL. Cole Payton did not play a lot of football as a starting quarterback at North Dakota State. So he was used pretty extensively in the North Dakota State offense throughout his career. You know, he almost has 2,000 career rushing yards. He almost has 31 career rushing touchdowns. And only a little part of that came in 2025. So he was kind of using a Taysom Hill role. I think I've seen somebody describe it that way. And yeah, you just look at for example, he only had 400 rushing yard or 400 passing yards before 2025, but he had about 1,200 rushing yards. So you can kind of see how he was used in a bit more of a utility role. And that means he's a great athlete. You know, Cole Payton, now we can talk about level of competition. When we're talking about, I think it is relevant for Group of Five, but if you ever bring up level of competition in the Power Four, dude, I just stop listening. It is relevant for North Dakota State. I also think it's super relevant for athleticism. So this is kind of me turning back into the high school recruiter because we do a lot of high school on this channel. And it's a very important thing in high school because the lowest level of high school competition to the highest level, it's so night and day. It's a lot bigger than the difference between the SEC and the ACC. That's the point I was trying to make before. I understand the perception is the ACC is a lot weaker, but they're a lot closer. When compared to other levels of competition, they're a lot closer. They're a lot closer than people realize. High school, though, that's the biggest thing because the biggest thing that gets overrated in high school to me for quarterbacks is certainly athleticism. And I'll try to keep it short on high school football because I know that's not really what people watch this stuff for, but I do think it's interesting. If you're a football fan, you might think it's interesting. So Jared Curtis was the 5-star, the number 1 ranked quarterback in 2025 or 2026, this recruiting class. According to most websites, I don't think he was a number 1 on everyone, but he was originally committed to Georgia, flipped to Vanderbilt on signing day. Pretty big deal. We'll not talk about that. I want to talk about the level of competition. So he went to Nashville Christian, which is either 1A or 2A football, which is about as low as football gets. And I don't know where Tennessee goes up to. I want to say 6A, but they might go up to 7A. That's the highest level of competition. Florida either goes up to 7A or 8A. The point is the less amount of A's, the worst level of competition. So when you watch Jared Curtis, you can feel good about the arm strength. The strong arm in 1A football is a strong arm in 7A football, right? The way the ball comes out of his hands, that's going to look exactly the same. I think a touch throw, fitting a ball into a tight window in high school, those are the kind of things that translate. The things that do not translate is when you start talking about Jared Curtis, the first play of his highlight tape. I'll link it so you guys can watch it if you want, because the first play is kind of crazy. He just kind of puts his shoulder down and completely runs through a guy that is probably at a community college, right? He's not playing Division I football right now. The guy's probably moved on from his football career after high school football. That's what you get in high school. That's what you get in the FCS as well. So when you watch Cole Payton just kind of running and attacking angles in the open field, he's just so much more athletic than everybody on the field that he is going to be, he is a good athlete. He is a guy that's definitely a bonus for him. But I think you kind of have to calm yourself down on it, because it's kind of the same thing with Jared Curtis. When you see Jared Curtis just, break 10 tackles in the open field and carry 6 guys into the end zone, part of it is because of the level of competition. So when you talk about the actual throwing, though, I think then I kind of hate when people bring up level of competition, because it's like you'll see Jared Curtis just like off platform throw like an 80-yard laser. And, you won't, I don't know if that point makes any sense, but with Cole Payton, that's the one thing that I think we have to gear ourselves down with. He ran for 800 yards in 2025, basically 777. Doesn't necessarily mean he'll do that in the NFL, and especially that's a big jump from the FCS. The level of athletes that he's breaking those tackles on, he's not going to do that in the NFL, but he is a good athlete. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm just trying to, set it on a scale. Anyways, that's not why you're drafting Cole Payton. I think that you're drafting Cole Payton. That's part of the reason. The real reason is the accuracy that he has deep. I was very impressed for a guy that did not play a lot of quarterback at North Dakota State until his senior season in 2025. Some of the touch and the ball placement that he threw to Lance, almost said Trey Lance. I'm pretty sure they're brothers, but just having the same last name and going to North Dakota State. The other Lance, I got his name up there right there. I think it's Bryce Lance. Yeah, Bryce Lance. Man, some of those throws that the ball placement on him were so impressive. He's a left-handed quarterback, by the way. We'll talk about that later. Really pretty deep ball. I think the ball placement, and it was pretty consistent also. Pretty good at reading leverage and where a defender is. Now, that's another thing, is when he kind of fits a ball into a window and the defensive back kind of gets there late, that's something else that in the NFL, the athletes are a lot better athletes and can kind of react to that. But the NFL is just a lot faster in general, right? Even if we're coming from the SEC, it's a lot faster than the SEC. But beautiful deep ball. I think that's why he's draftable. And I think the athleticism also is pretty exciting, because he is a good athlete. That straight line speed's really what it is. The agility's okay, but he's really fast in a straight line. I do think he's a threat to run for yards in the NFL. If you want a quarterback that can move, definitely think Cole Payton's in that bucket. Really like the deep ball. Didn't turn the ball over in 2025. And for a guy that didn't play that much college football as a quarterback, actually being quarterback one and having actual film and getting better throughout the weeks. He didn't have that film up because they had a starter last year, Cam Miller, that was drafted. North Dakota State, believe it or not, has a pretty rich quarterback tradition. I've had a lot of guys drafted over the past 15 years. I think I'm going to have the thing rotate in, but yeah, Carson Wentz, Trey Lance, Easton Stick, Cam Miller. Having two top 5 picks, Wentz and Lance, that's pretty crazy. But yeah, Cole Payton. Kind of move on to some of the negatives with Cole Payton. So the first thing is I really don't like the release. And I know that a lot of people are just kind of prejudiced against left-handed quarterbacks, even subconsciously. I don't have any conscious bias towards lefties. But it does make sense, because you watch so much football, and 95% of quarterbacks are right-handed, that when you see a left-handed quarterback, it just looks unnatural. Your mind can just kind of tell something's wrong without knowing exactly what it is. Sometimes that's the problem, and that might be the problem why I'm not a big fan of the way the ball comes out. And we did something on the Cole Payton video that was probably unfair to Cole Payton. So we first made him a right-handed quarterback, so to make sure it wasn't anything like that. And I put Fernando Mendoza below it, and we just kind of synced it up. So once they both started to throw, it was synced up, and you could kind of tell how fast the ball gets out of Fernando Mendoza's hand, how much faster it gets out compared to Cole Payton. And it is a lot faster, but that might be unfair, because I think that's something Fernando Mendoza does really well, is having that very clean release, but Cole Payton's just takes a bit longer. So when we watch Levitt next year, I think Levitt has a bit of a 3/4 release where it kind of comes out here. It comes out fast, but just kind of like sidearm, a little bit sidearm, and that gets batted at the line of scrimmage. That's not the problem with Cole Payton. The problem with Cole Payton is I never played quarterback. I was never a quarterback coach. This is from me listening to other people talk about quarterbacks and me just kind of like working through the logic in my head. So if you have any insight on it and if you think I'm wrong, I'd love to have that conversation so I don't make that mistake again. Anyways, when you watch Cole Payton throw the football and you compare it to Fernando Mendoza, I kind of noticed this the first time. I'm going to do it right-handed because I'm a right-handed, not a quarterback, but a right-handed human. When you see Cole Payton do it, it just kind of like stops right here. Like if he's going through the motion, he's here, there's a pause there, and then he kind of comes up and works that way. And it's over the top, to his credit. It is over the top. I'm not worried about it getting batted or anything like that, but there's just kind of a pause. And then you watch Fernando Mendoza, instead of going down and there's no pause, when Fernando Mendoza does, he's working out and then just kind of rips over the top so he doesn't have to work back up. And it just takes a little bit longer for Cole Payton to get the ball out. And why that is important, some people kind of call it nitpicking, and it's why, people just kind of overthink quarterbacks, which might be true sometimes, but as fast as Cole Payton is through his progressions, I think he's very decisive when he throws the football. And if he keeps getting faster, it's just always going to be limited by that kind of pause in his throwing motion. So why it's really important is because defenders in zone coverage and in the NFL, again, when the level of competition gets better, they are so much more athletic. They're so much better at reacting to what the quarterback decides. And when he has that extended release, as fast as the actual decision making happens and his mental aspects of, doing a great job of reading the defense and deciding where to throw, it just gives so much more time for defensive backs to react. And, the kind of cheat code, or the word that I use all the time, the saying is, the NFL is just so fast that kind of, when you're giving them more time to react, that's a big advantage to the defense and a disadvantage for Cole Payton. So that's the first thing with the release, is that it takes a little bit longer to come out. Now, I'm curious to hear just how long other people think, and I've never heard anybody else say that about with Cole Payton, so I might be off base. And if you hear other people say, oh no, he's completely wrong, I don't know. It looks long to me. And another thing about it is when he kind of holds it down, it's like kind of at the hip, and even I say it's an extended pause, and if you watch the games live, you might not even be able to notice it. But when you start paying attention to it, once you start to notice it, it's like a rock in your shoe. Then you just see it all the time. I get worried about it being there and him, starting to work out, and then a defensive lineman being able to just kind of bat it out because of how low it is and because of how long it's there. I think that's a good opportunity for defensive linemen. That second part is a smaller concern than that first one. I think the biggest is the timing on the throws just kind of gets all out of whack because of how long it takes. So that's the biggest thing. I think his arm's just okay. I've seen a lot of people think he has a real strong arm. Me, I think it's good enough. I just think that if he had a real strong arm, then we could kind of talk ourselves into the release can be longer because the ball has some zip on it and it really gets there. I think his deep game is a lot more based on timing and ball placement than it is just throwing a ball on a laser 40 yards downfield. So I don't think you're going to get wowed by the arm strength. I do think it's good enough. Just okay. And then another thing is the pocket manipulation. So he was sacked 22 times in 2025, and some of the sacks that I saw were pretty bad because I think Cole Payton right now, his pocket plan is a lot more based on him being a much better athlete than everybody else on the football field. And you'll watch the highlight tape running and you'll say, oh, what are you talking about? He's bad at pocket manipulation. He's doing such a great job of just kind of like breaking. Yeah, well, he doesn't anticipate the pressure in front of him. I think right now it's a lot more reactionary where, he's great at, I'm trying to be positive towards him and say something that's good about him, is when that pressure is in his face right away, he has that athleticism to kind of just break it and make a move on the defender. But it's like, when those guys are much better athletes, I think that you have to be a bit more anticipating rather than reactionary and actually being proactive in feeling that pressure and not just reacting to what's in front of your face, but just having that mental clock or that mental thermometer. I like the thermometer a lot better because it's not a timer, because if it was a timer, then you're just going to start forcing pressure when it's not there. It's more of a field thing than just having, that time or that clock. So I think the pocket manipulation, he's a good athlete and he's great off script, by the way. I meant to bring that up with the positives, is when he gets out of the pocket, he is real accurate. There's some crazy throws on the tape where off platform, he just puts the ball wherever he wants it. But the pocket manipulation, in my opinion at least, does need a bit of polish, I'll say. I think it's there. It's something he can get better at. Going back to the release, I'm not sure you can really fix your release, because if I'm drafting a quarterback and I'm like, oh, he'll be great once we fix the way that he throws the football. Well, you're drafting a quarterback and you want to completely rework the way that he throws a football, just pick somebody else at that point. It's almost like buying a new car, but just telling yourself, yeah, I just need a new engine. At that point, you might as well just buy a completely new car or something. It's the same thing with baseball when they talk about like fixing a guy's swing. Although I know less about baseball, it just kind of seems crazy to me. So I'm not sure that you can talk yourself into him actually kind of fixing that release. You can talk yourself into getting better at the pocket manipulation. And I'll tell you right now, by the way, like, I think it's always the case for guys that haven't played a whole lot of starting quarterback. And now starting reps are important for a couple reasons. You can get better in practice at reading defenses and all that kind of stuff, but I really don't think you can get better at feeling pressure until it happens in a live situation, because at practice, when you have that red jersey on at North Dakota State and they're not touching you, there's no incentive for you to actually get better at feeling that pressure. All the time you'll watch it. If you ever have the opportunity to go to like NFL training camp or see like practice in college where they don't hit the quarterback at all, and I'm sure even at the high school level, but the quarterback will make a throw, but if he got sacked, they're not sacking him. They just put their hands on him and he throws it anyway. That's not a learning moment. It might be a little bit, but I think until you're actually thrown into the fire, that's something that you won't get better at. And that's something that we see when I say with every quarterback. I feel like every guy that didn't have a whole lot of starting experience in college, I think that's the biggest thing that they all kind of struggle with early in their NFL careers. And even on the tape, as good as it is something that will show up pretty often. So all that being said, I think scheme fit, if you want a quarterback that's athletic and you're willing to spend a 5th round pick on a flyer, I think Cole Payton's worth a 5th round pick, 6th round pick. Yeah, why not? Going back to the rankings, we had definitely Mendoza first, not in that conversation. I got him below Nussmeier. I think Nussmeier gets a lot of hate by the draft community. And watching even the 2025 film, that wasn't great. And he looked a lot better at the Senior Bowl. I like that guy a lot better. Who are we talking about? I like Nussmeier better than Cole Payton. But those are the 3 quarterbacks we've watched so far. We're doing the Iowa quarterback, another guy that played FCS football before 2025, Gronowski. I actually bought a thing of cards. Gronowski. I don't know how to say its name. It's not Gronkowski, but it looks like it. I bought another, like a small thing of cards, like it was a Christmas present or something, and we have a numbered Gronowski right there. So that's my prized possession right now. Hopefully when we open that pack later, we get something better than that. We'll try to be faster with these other guys. I'm fine taking a long time on the first rounders. And then, of course, the quarterback, it's always a bit more of an involved discussion. Shad Banks Jr., 6'1", 230-pound linebacker that played at UTSA in 2025, where he was a first-team All-American Conference. He was All-AAC, not ACC, All-AAC at UTSA, where he finished with 90 tackles. So, yeah, great athlete. Speed's great. 6'1", 230. A bit on the smaller end. I've seen some people on my Instagram short. Some guy said he thinks he's like 5'11", 200. I don't think he looks like that, but 6'1", 230, 2025, 2026. Linebackers are a lot smaller than they were when I was growing up. I'm sure when some of you other guys that were growing up, they were even bigger back then. Almost like what defensive linemen look like now. Now a lot more positionless, and he's not Kyle Lewis. So Kyle Lewis is more of a defensive back linebacker hybrid. I think Shad Banks Jr. is much more of a linebacker. So yeah, great athlete. Really like the sideline to sideline speed. If you guys are going to notice something about me and the players that I like, it's very based on high school recruiting. So when you're recruiting out of high school and you watch my recruiting videos, I would never, if I had it my way, I would never bring up something like timing. I would never bring up any kind of like football stuff. It's so much more based on athleticism because, because of the level of competition, but kind of in a different way. In high school, when you're recruiting a guy, you can't really say, we're not going to take him because he's bad at man-to-man coverage. We're not going to take this guy because he's bad at coming off of blocks. You talk yourself into taking guys because they have high school coaches. Like, at the end of the day, at least in my experience, a lot of the high school coaches, their number one priority is not whether their junior linebacker is coming off of blocks. Those guys have real 9-to-5 jobs. They also have, summer jobs. They're not full-time coaches. So the point I'm trying to make is when you start noticing the players that I say, oh, I'm so high on this guy, it's because of that bias that I have in my head towards the guys that are great athletes. And I'm telling you right now, you're going to start to see me overlook a lot of the downside with players because I get so excited about the upside, because that's what recruiting's about. And that's just kind of where I started watching a lot of football. But yeah, Shad Banks is a great athlete. He started his career at TCU. I don't know if I brought that up. Anyways, great athlete. Great in pass coverage also. So I think Kyle Lewis is better than him. I should have Kyle Lewis higher on that board if I don't. But Shad Banks is very good in coverage. The long speed is really good. And you see it on the sideline to sideline stuff, sure. But where I really got blown away by it was him dropping into that middle hole. And I wish we could use that whiteboard, and maybe I'll fix it next week so we can. But if you guys know how cover 2 works, Tampa 2, that is, I'm sure most of you do, but I try to be inclusive to people that don't know that much about actual like football. Anyways, yeah, so you got Tampa 2. It's cover 2, so your 2 safeties are deep, but you also have that middle linebacker dropping into that middle hole, and it's basically cover 3 because he's got to really get deep into that middle hole that you're asking him to drop into cover 2. And man, cover 2 on paper, or Tampa 2 is awesome on paper when you're saying, oh yeah, we'll just have our linebacker be that middle third defender. Well, that's a very difficult drop. He's 5 yards in front of the safeties, and you want to talk about Shad Banks being undersized. Well, if he was 6'5", 250 pounds, 6'3", 250, he wouldn't be dropping into the middle hole the way that he does. The point I'm trying to make, that straight line speed really shows up when he drops into that middle hole, that middle third, whatever you want to call it. And the hip fluidity as well. He can really just kind of change direction and really be really good in pass coverage. I really like him in that. And, I don't get too caught up in the PFF grades, but there is I want to say a little bit of merit to them. But man, I took a look at the PFF grades and the pass coverage is just so low with Shad Banks, and I don't know why. I think there was one man coverage clip where he kind of got burnt in, but I mean, it's just so stupid because I watched the game that he had the lowest one in also, and I don't think it was just he's really good in pass coverage regardless of what PFF says. Yeah, he's great going backwards in coverage and coming up as well. So I didn't really talk about this, but he's got a real quick trigger when he's filling in the hole. And I think the reason that Shad Banks, I've seen 5th round with him, it's just crazy. And I'm telling you, it's that like demon in my head that just gets excited about these great athletes and just stops downplaying the stuff. So I'll get into the negatives after, but he's so fast to fill holes. And dude, yeah, level of competition, it's going to keep coming up this entire draft process against Temple. Temple, I don't know how their offense was, but they were pretty bad. And I forget what running back I was watching that had 200 yards against Temple, or it was a quarterback or something, and just their defense was so bad that I couldn't make the video in good conscience without bringing up how bad the Temple defense was. But anyways, Shad Banks just has such a quick trigger to fill a hole. And it's really difficult. We saw it especially in the Texas A&M game where Cronover was trying to climb up into the second level, and he just could not get Shad Banks in. I didn't even think Cronover took a bad angle to Shad Banks. If he took the angle that Shad Banks was on, he'd be like literally running in a straight line, because Shad Banks just very quickly pulled that trigger and then made the play in the backfield. So he's real quick downhill, and that also shows up in pass coverage. Saw that in the interception, the pick six that he had, just completely jumped the route because of how fast that trigger is. Great athlete. So the angles that he takes sometimes are, I said this in the video, they'd be perfect in flag football where there's no offensive line trying to block him. So some of the angles that he takes, he just kind of gets caught in the wash because that offensive line just kind of climbs into the second level and does get a hand on him. He is so fast, it is difficult for them to do it, but there's one play, I don't know, against two, where the offensive line just kind of like put a hand out, and Shad Banks just got slowed down just a little bit and went for a big gain. That was the one thing I saw, that plus the size. I don't know why. I think he was also banged up in 2024. I don't know why people aren't as excited about Shad Banks Jr. as I am. I said up to day two. Up to round two. I think third round is where I have Shad Banks right now. We'll start to kind of fire these guys off. Brenen Thompson, wide receiver at Mississippi State. So fast in a straight line, really undersized. And when I say undersized, I mean really undersized, 5'9", 170 pounds. You're not drafting him because of that. You're drafting him because of the straight line speed that he has. Really one of the more interesting players that we talked about, and I wish that this video wasn't running long because we could have a really interesting discussion about it. But yeah, so at 5'9", 170, you kind of want to get more out of, you're not going to get anything physically. Right now, all he really does is stretch the football field, and he's got good change of direction ability. He's a good route runner, but I don't think you're going to really ask him. I just wish he was a bit more of a utility player. So I think he's a third round pick, but he's definitely a guy that has to fit the scheme that you're drafting him into. You have to have an offense that wants to really test the defense vertically, because that's what he does so well. You're not getting much other than that, and I think he's got upside as a person that can do stuff with the ball in his hands. He did not do that at Mississippi State in 2025. Only 12% of his snaps came from the slot. So if you want to tell yourself, like, on those downs where we want to stretch the field, we'll have him on, and then we'll also mix him in as a slot wide receiver, it's just not what he did. And, you know, I don't know if you think he can turn into that. That's not what he did at Mississippi State. And only had 67 receiving yards after the catch on plays that he caught less than 9 yards. I don't know if that stat makes any sense. It's one of those PFF stats that I pay for. But basically, if he caught the football at before 9 yards or behind the line of scrimmage, it's how many receiving yards he had after the catch on those kind of plays. Not even 70 receiving yards in that regard. So when I turned on the film, I thought it was going to be a guy that stretched the field, but also kind of got involved in the screen game and was like real elusive with the ball in his hands. That's just not what he's been asked to do. If you're drafting him with the thinking that he can do that, it's not going to be because of what he put on film. I'll tell you that much. That's a bit more of a developmental thing. And when we're talking about developmental thing with a guy that's 5'9", that usually really affects the draft grade. But yeah, to just start, I feel like I've been all negative about him. He is so fast in a straight line, and the explosiveness is just, it looks fake. And I said that I don't think he can accelerate at all because he's at full speed at the beginning as when he is at the end. Like, usually you'll watch those explosive guys and they're real quick out of their stance. And they just continue to pick up speed before reaching top end speed. Brenen Thompson in the first yard out of his stance is just so explosive, and he's so fast all the way down the field, and he's real agile at top speed as well. That I said this before, he's either going to take it to the outside or the inside. You basically have to worry about Brenen Thompson twice because he just as easily can go to the outside as the inside. And if you even have a little bit of hesitation when he's at the top of the route, and even if you end up guessing right, that little hesitation is all he needs to just take the top off of you. So yeah, definitely a guy that you either love him if you're a team that wants to consistently stretch the field, or it's just like, well, yeah, we'll take a 6th round flyer on him, but he's just not really a scheme fit. So that's what it really is with him to me is do you have an offense where you're going to want to just really utilize that speed? because he's going to be kind of hard to utilize if you don't have an offense that does that. In my opinion, that's my 2 thoughts, my 2 cents on him. Vincent Anthony, dude, we have so many good players this week that we just don't have the time to do. That's what I get for talking about Jared Curtis. But yeah, Vincent Anthony Jr. So on the video, I kind of hyped him up a lot, and I meant to do that because I do think that he is another one of those like developmental guys that you draft on pure upside, because at 6'6", he has the traits. I said this before, if he would have had 12 sacks in 2025, we'd be talking about Vincent Anthony as a surefire first rounder. And he had 7.5, so, pretty productive 2025 season. I actually remember Vincent Anthony before he was like kind of a big name. I'm looking at the stats right now. He had 5 sacks in 2024. That'll get you noticed. I want to say I watched him in 2023 for some reason, but he's got a good first step. He's pretty explosive. He's got really good length, of course, at 6'6", so he casts a very wide net. He's very hard to get around, and very flexible also. He checks the boxes in that regard. My little cute joke that I made is, at 6'6", at Duke, I thought we were watching a small forward. I was going first overall. I thought that was a pretty good line, but those are what he does very well. Those are the traits. Those traits are very expensive. He's going to go day 2. I'd be very surprised if he didn't get drafted at least in the 3rd round, and I'd be pretty surprised if he didn't get drafted in the 2nd round, just between me and you off the record. He has no kind of pass rush plan at all, and maybe it's because I watched Romello Height a week ago and I got spoiled by all the kind of moves that he worked in, but Vincent Anthony doesn't have any kind of pass rush moves, and we kind of saw him attempt a spin move, and it was kind of pathetic. So you're gonna really have to work on the technical approach that he has, because he has no real approach. He's trying to get to your outside shoulder, and if he doesn't do that, he's just, the rep's over. He's very good at getting to your outside shoulder because of the first step and because of the bend, and he doesn't have to get home to get a sack because at 6'6", he can just kind of use that length sometimes. That's why you're drafting him in the 2nd round. But yeah, no pass rush plan right now. And also, I don't think he's got that closing speed or that acceleration we talk about. So that might be that might be kind of why he falls. Because you won't really see speed to power show up, and you also won't really see him just kind of close distance real fast. I think that athleticism beyond 2.5 yards is just okay. I think it's good enough. I just think it's just okay. But yeah, the stuff that you get excited about him with, you get really excited about him because 6'6" is rare length. He has rare flexibility at 6'6" and a pretty good first step also. If he ever can start working in his hands, he's got really long arms, but the only real way he uses them right now is kind of to catch quarterbacks. When he starts using them as a pass rusher to work a rip, to work some kind of, maybe not a swim move, because he, 6'6", 250 is kind of spread out, that, opening that inside might be kind of not the best idea. But when he can start using that length in earnest as a pass rusher and not, as a closer, he has a chance. That's so exciting. That's why I think round 2 is a real possibility for him. And yeah, this is what I said in the video. And damn, I really hope you guys watch this, because this point is a really good point that I'm about to make up, and it's, at least to me, it's really interesting. So if Vincent Anthony Jr. would have had a pass rush plan by now, like I said, he would have had 12 sacks. He'd be a first rounder, no doubt about it, with the traits that he has. Well, this is how, if you're an NFL team and you want a valuable pick and you really trust your team to develop Vincent Anthony into a pass rusher, not just a guy that is a good athlete, but into a football player, that's a lot of value that you're getting if you do develop him into that, because you can take him day 2 or, 2nd round or 3rd round, wherever he ends up falling. And you're getting a day 1 talent on the condition that you can develop him into a pass rusher. And that's how you create value. So I think with him, it's not so much the scouting with Vincent Anthony. It's about the actual coaches that you have on the football field and the plan that you have for him to turn into a pass rusher. We also watched Emmanuel Pregnon, the offensive lineman who played interior offensive line. I'll just do him real short. I think he's a second-round pick. I think I've said everything about him on the video that I kind of want to talk about with him. Yeah, really impressed at how good of a pass protector he is because he's a big offensive lineman, but he can move left and right pretty well. And I actually think he's a very interesting player because, right away I thought I'd be looking at more of a road grader. He moves pretty dang well. And at Oregon, of course, a lot of zone that they run, it's a lot of him staying square and him just kind of shifting into the second level. Doesn't do a great job of taking the angles. He has the athleticism to do it. We saw that in pass protection and also saw how athletic he was kind of when he pulled. Now, in his own scheme, you're not really kicking out as much, but when he was asked to do that, I thought he covered enough ground. Just as a run blocker, it's like when he starts to engage, it's just the lower body just does not churn. I say the way that you want it to, but like almost at all. I think that he's strong. You just wouldn't be able to tell it because it's all upper body and he just never really drives with the lower body, at least in the games that I watch. So he's like the anti-Jennings Dunker, which is a shame because I feel like Jennings Dunker's a great offensive lineman, but I think Pregnon's a better offensive lineman than him. I'll say he's a better prospect than him. Because, well, no, I don't know. I'm pretty close. I think I have them actually put them like on top of each other because I still have to think about it. Because I've really, like, in the Jennings Dunker video, I really just kind of talked bad about his athleticism. And that's the athleticism at tackle. So I think he is athletic enough to play guard. And in my head, I say Pregnon's such a better athlete, but I never thought Pregnon was a tackle, so we just kind of, is he athletic enough at guard? Yeah. Dunker is just, is he athletic enough at tackle? No. So then I moved him to guard, and I just never thought about him as a guard, I guess, in that athletic. So I'm close, but yeah, actually I think Dunker's better than him. Very, very different schemes, though, I think. I think Dunker, you want pulling and you want him kicking out. Pregnon, I think, can do either, but at Oregon, at least, more of a zone guy for sure. All right, and I think we'll just move on to this, and then we have some other news. I don't think we're going to get to Trinidad Chambliss. Maybe I'll do a separate video. But yeah, if you're listening to this on Spotify, we're opening a Bowman U Chrome. I reached out to companies to sponsor this segment so we could just put their logo on. I didn't even want any money. I was just like, throw me a good deal on a box, and they didn't do that. So no one to sponsor besides we-draft.com. And we do have a sponsor actually after this, but we'll do that later. We'll get into the good stuff first. So we got Max Claris, the first one, tight end from Ohio State. We haven't watched him yet. So that's a nice one, not numbered or anything. We're guaranteed 2 autographs in the entire box. So I kind of hope we get one today since it's the first one, and then maybe some other day. Quentin Martin Jr. Here we go. Penn State running back. So Quentin Martin, I remember watching him in high school when he went to, they have like a yellow field. He's from Pennsylvania, if I'm thinking of the right guy, which it looks like I am. Bell Vernon, yeah, it says it right there. I remember watching him at Bell Vernon, and I thought he was a defensive back. He's a great running back, too. I thought he was going to play defense in the college. Eli Bowen. See, like, we got one more in here. I don't know Eli Bowen. Is that bad? Yeah, dude. Quentin Martin's high school film. If you guys got free time, go turn that on. And Deshaun Bishop, of course, Tennessee running back. Not in this draft, I don't think. Should know that. Yeah, he's not in this class. Deshaun Bishop. We got one more pack that we'll do since we have 20 packs and we're about 10 weeks from the draft. So we have more than enough time to get all these guys done. So we got a quarterback first, Billy Edwards from Wisconsin. Another quarterback, Avery Johnson, not in this draft class. He just transferred to... He's not at Kansas State next year. He's the guy that, if you guys don't follow college football and don't know who he is, You've seen the video of his brother beating up his dad. That was one of the weirdest situations I've ever seen. And I love how we just haven't gotten any context from it. There's just a video out there of Avery Johnson's dad just beating the crap out of his brother in Dublin. But that's actually pretty cool because it's got like an old design on it. I don't know what year that's supposed to be, but it's not numbered or anything. Caden Velkamp's third quarterback that we have. And it looks shiny on the screen, but it's just normal. FAU quarterback that actually had a pretty good season. I don't think he's in this draft. I wonder if he transferred anywhere. Oh, wait, these are printed before the 2025 season, by the way. I didn't know that because I didn't really think about that, I guess. No, this is a refractor. No, they're all refract. I don't know. No, this one definitely has color in it, but it's not numbered. Wait, Velkamp. See, that one doesn't shine like this, right? Yeah, and Ahmad Hardy. So I'm glad we got at least one guy that's kind of relevant. Draft. I guess Claire's relevant, but Ahmad Hardy, he's my running back one. I think some people like Keywan Lacey better than him at Ole Miss, and I like Keywan Lacey a lot. But Ahmad Hardy, very patient, really good vision, really big football player. He's only 5'10", 205. He looks so much bigger than that because that's what he was listed. I think that's what he's listed at on Missouri's website. And all season, I just never believed it because, you watch him run the ball. He's a lot stronger than that. And funny enough, talking about Keywan Lacey, they were in the same recruiting class. They were both true freshmen at Missouri in 2024. And Keywan was kind of like the odd man out. Jamal Roberts, Missouri has also. He's really good. Next year's draft. Not as good as Hardy, but good. One of those guys that is a good football player. You're just never going to talk about him as much as Ahmad Hardy, but yeah, great season at Missouri in 2024. I actually think in 2024 he ran for 1350. I didn't even realize that, but last season in 2025 he either led the entire country in rushing yards, but Keywan Lacey might have finished with the number one number, but right. Ahmad Hardy, excuse me, I misspoke. Ahmad Hardy started his career at Louisiana Monroe, I think. You'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure he started at Louisiana Monroe, so him and Keywan Lacey were not in the same recruiting class. I misspoke. Ended up transferring to Missouri from there, but those were this week's. So yeah, Avery. I don't know. No autographed. Nothing to write home about. Ahmad Hardy though, yeah, good, great football player. Really excited to watch him next year. Can really elevate himself into a first round running back. I think he's close to that conversation. One more good season of film. Guy that's going to have a lot of tread on the tires when you draft him, though, I'll tell you that. And the other thing that we have, actually, it's pretty interesting. We are now, I can't say that we're official partners because that's like legally not what we are, but we are affiliated with, or I'm an affiliate. I don't know how to say it legally, so I'm just going to say that. I was approved to be an affiliate with Mitchell and Ness, so we don't have any other sponsorships. we-draft.com. That's me. That's I don't really view that as a sponsorship. That's kind of more of an integration. Anyways, I'm going to start putting Mitchell and Ness links all over the videos. You're not going to really hear me do anything like this where I stop a video to just completely advertise for them, and I actually don't want to advertise for them right now. I'm going to have a real conversation. But I did buy about 6 t-shirts with my discount code. So they're 30% off for President's Day right now. So if you need some stuff, they have NCAA stuff. I'll go through it all. I'll just kind of go through the haul right now. So at first I got this Nets t-shirt. I didn't buy any NFL stuff or college football stuff because I know how fans are. Is I wear one t-shirt of a team that I don't like, and then they just start thinking that I'm a Raiders fan or something. So I was going to think about doing that, but I'll just try to stay on bias. So I got this nice New Jersey Nets t-shirt, which I'm excited for. I don't know how the quality is. I haven't bought a Mitchell and Ness t-shirt, so if you're worried about the actual quality, I'll tell you how it is. Well, I'll tell you if it's good. If it's not good, you just won't see me wear it or say anything. I got this nice Expos t-shirt. Jesus. we got this Royals t-shirt, and a fun fact about the Kansas City Royals logo that you're looking at. That was actually the inspiration. It's my color scheme right now. The King Cold. If you see the gold and the blue, it's not this exact color scheme, but I literally took it from the old Royals color scheme because I like the KC because it stands for King Cold also. But the color scheme also, I like the blue and gold. So that's kind of why you see everything inspired by the Royals. So I do have a lot of Royals t-shirt, not because I'm a Royals fan, because it kind of goes with the theme. I wanted to get 6 things. I don't know why. I guess so I had a different thing every day. Grizzlies t-shirt, not as excited about, but I think it's a pretty cool logo. Timberwolves, I just like that blue and green. Got that. And we also got an Orlando Magic t-shirt just because I really liked Penny Hardaway. Wasn't alive when he was playing, but I like watching the highlights. Yeah, so Mitchell and Ness, just to be in full clarity, I get 5% of everything that you buy, and I don't put anything behind a paywall, so I kind of need to have something to advertise on this just for it to be worth my time, and so I can like afford Premiere Pro and all that stuff. You know, in general, having money is good, so yeah, I'm not going to kill you guys with ads, but I just wanted to go through some of the stuff here because let's take a look at some of the college stuff that they had, and I'll tell you the t-shirt selection, you know, I didn't want to buy anything because I wasn't biased. I also wanted to buy t-shirts so I could have like 6 of them, and I wasn't trying to drop enough money to buy like 6 hoodies or anything like that. But the t-shirts that they have, I think, are all right for college. I really like the hoodies that they have. I'm trying to think of a good one. Oregon, I almost bought this t-shirt because I like this design, and I love the blue and or the green and yellow, but yeah, I didn't want to be biased. And I do like the sweaters that they have for some of the college teams. They don't have a big selection, I'll tell you. I don't know if I'm like even allowed to say anything bad about Mitchell and Ness, but I'll just tell you guys like my real opinion that the college stuff is all right. The hoodies are really nice. That's I'm trying to. I forget that I'm doing an ad here and I'm just being too serious. The sweaters are really nice. Like this is something that if I had $77 and I was gonna buy one thing, I really do like this design that they have, and they have them for a lot of the college football teams. So yeah, if you guys have the means and the interest in buying anything from Mitchell and Ness, I would really appreciate the support. But at the same time, I'm not going to tell you guys to buy something you don't want. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, they don't have a lot for every college, but I think the actual stuff that they have is nice, just not a lot of volume. But, like, yeah, shit. If I had the money for this right now, I'm all over that. That's a really nice sweater. The NFL stuff is pretty good. And all right, here's the other thing. They have really nice NFL jerseys, and I'm not really that big into jerseys, but I mean, $112 for this Joe Namath, like that's pretty under the standard price of what you're paying when you're buying a jersey now. And yeah, 181 for Boomer Esiason. I mean, if you're a big Boomer Esiason fan, if you were a big Maryland fan when he was there, totally get that. And yeah, for every NFL team, they do have a pretty good selection of jerseys and some nice sweaters as well. The t-shirts, I'm really into t-shirts, but I guess that's like a me thing. But I was pretty impressed by some of the actual hoodies and like the more expensive stuff that they have. Definitely more of a quality over a quantity type of retailer, I think. That's what I got. And yeah, I'd really appreciate any support, any link. If you ever see a Mitchell and Ness link that I drop anywhere, I'll get a piece of that money. But, at the same time, like, I'm not going to tell you guys buy something that you won't. And maybe that makes me a bad salesman, but I just hate other YouTube channels. Like, I watched YouTube like a while ago, and I don't really that much anymore, but I used to just stop watching the channels that went crazy with the advertisements. So I feel like it's a natural partnership, because it's all college football. And I actually get excited by the retro logos, by the way. Like, if you go on the We Dash Draft website, like, I just kind of put the old college logos and they're kind of out of place, but I kind of like them like that. So I do get kind of excited by the old logos. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys. I'm not going to go crazy. It's not going to be spammy, because you guys are just going to stop watching. I would, if I thought it was a good strategy and I would make money off of it, sure, I'll drown you guys with ads. But I just know, like me, I just stopped watching those people that just go crazy with the ads. It's not worth it money wise, so it's like, why do it? But yeah, that's it for this week. So it was a pretty fun episode. Gonna try to get this up earlier next week. It's the way that my morning worked out. Kind of out of energy at the end of the day, and I just kind of had to power through this. So we'll do 10 more prospects next week, 2 more cards, and no Mitchell and Ness ad next week. That'll be in all the videos, hopefully, but very subtle. Like you see the ad, the little cards that we have turn around. It's just gonna be a little ad like that. So really appreciate you guys living with that stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, reach out. Let me know any concerns that you have about anything I said. I don't think I pissed anybody too much off. I totally forgot Ahmad Hardy was at Louisiana Monroe. It's like one of those things that you just kind of forget about it. But yeah. So yeah, and Avery Johnson, I did the research after. For some reason I thought he left Kansas State and he was in the transfer portal, but looks like he'll be back at Kansas State in 2025, 2026. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.